Excited to talk about taxes tonight. I know that this is super exciting for everyone, so thank you for being here. With that, I'm going to introduce to you Tim Johnson. He is a certified public accountant. He has been working with Apex now for a few years. He's with the accounting firm JLK Rosenberger, based in Southern California. He's been partnering with Apex for a lot of years to help all of our care professionals with their tax questions. And we hope that you leave this webinar feeling more confident and at ease about tax season. In addition to Tim, we also have Tom Breedlove and Carolyn Livingston from Care.com's HomePay. They are also available to ask questions to, and we also have Diane Dutois and Regional Director, who is our Senior Vice President, and Regional Director, Ariana Deutsch. I think those are everybody I had to introduce. And remember, Tim will guide us through his presentation and try and leave your questions until the end unless he asks for specific questions, and put them in that chat if you look below. So I'll turn my video off and I will head it over to Tim.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kelly, and thanks, Diane, for having me. My name is Tim Johnson. I'm a CPA, certified public accountant out here in sunny Southern California, where we measure our winter weather by how much wind and afternoon, or I should say morning clouds we get. So thanks for having me, and look forward to kind of helping everyone out. This is, I think, probably about the third or fourth year I've been blessed to help everyone out, and I always learn something new every year, and hopefully the folks that are on the call, that you guys learn something also. So we're just going to get started here, and all right, so kind of a couple of the disclosures here first that all of us CPAs love making, but everyone's personal tax situation is personal to themselves, and so what applies to you may not apply to everyone. So we do try to keep this as general as possible. Your unique tax situation is going to be yours, and so always consult with someone that knows your personal tax situation. And obviously, ProRepair is not in the business of providing tax advice, and so that's why they've reached out to me to be able to hopefully give you guys some information that's going to help you out. So let's see here. All right. So, and again, this is all just general guidelines, especially as we go towards some of the state type stuff. It's going to be important to understand that we have 50 different states and involved, which not all of them have a local or a state income tax, but a lot of them do. The other thing to remember is if you've been in and out of our U.S. tax system here, that there's been some changes over the last couple of years that you may have heard about. So 2019 tax rules may be different, especially if you're reaching back 2 years ago to 2017 year. And one of our biggest changes that happened starting with the 2018 year is that there's no longer a federal exemption for non-resident aliens, which effectively means that $1 gets subject to federal income tax, and that you don't get an exemption for any of your income, unfortunately, anymore. And then, having said that, that means that your stipend is taxable income here in the U.S. It's not a reimbursement for anything. It actually is taxable income to you. And because some people say, what's a stipend? It's a gift. Well, the Department of Labor and the Internal Revenue Service deems that there is an employee-employer relationship, and that that stipend that you receive is indeed taxable income for you. So generally, an au pair will be considered to be what's called a non-resident alien here in the United States. And I know that a lot of times status can change in terms of if maybe you were a student previously, or maybe on a non-immigrant status with a visa. And so that there's some other statuses that are available, but it's important to understand that you are a non-resident alien for tax purposes. And obviously, if you have a more complicated situation, you need to talk to someone that is a little bit more qualified to speak on your personal situation. And in most cases, au pairs can use what's called a Form 1040 NR-EZ. So as finance people, we love our abbreviations, but essentially think as your Form 1040 as your U.S. income tax form. That's what most of us are filing is that Form 1040. The NR stands for non-resident, and then the EZ is supposed to stand for, well, easy. Although I don't think it always is the case, but most of y'all are going to be filing that Form 1040 NR for non-resident-EZ, which I think of that as like a little shorter form than a full 1040 non-resident form. It is, simple and self-explanatory, but it's real easy for me to say that because, I deal with this every single day and I understand that it can be intimidating. So there's also tax preparation services out there that can help you out. There's also software that can help you out too with your filing. In fact, if you're so inclined, you can utilize a service out there called Sprint Tax, and they ProPair has secured a small discount for you, a $10 discount. I certainly don't get anything from that, and I don't believe that ProPair does there. And but you can go to that URL, and I understand that's a little broken up there, and so we might need to pass that along to you outside of this particular presentation. But I think your reference code is ProPair-LP when you go to their site. And oh, I'm sorry, the discount code is that big long letters there, but Sprint Tax, I have used it to be able to just go in and make sure that it handles au pair tax filings, and it certainly does. So if it's something you're so inclined to utilize, I do encourage you to check them out. So just some basics. So our tax day here in the United States is April 15th. A lot of years it's actually not on exactly April 15th because of weekends or holidays or whatnot. This year it actually is April 15th. So that's our due date for our tax filings. And any taxes that are owed are supposed to be paid by that due date, or any forms that need to be filed also need to be filed by April 15th. However, if you have any family members or whatnot that are involved with taxes, you always know that there's an extension or a little brief respite of time that you can ask for. And so if you're not able to file by April 15th of this year, you can ask for an extension, but you have to file another form for that, and that's the Form 7004. So you file that by April 15th, and then you have until October to file your taxes. But it is only an extension to file your taxes, not to pay. So if you owe money, you're supposed to pay it by April 15th, which means if you can calculate how much you owe, you might as well just go ahead and file. And so I do suggest that most everyone, unless your situation is super complicated, to try your best to file and pay by April 15th. But if it is just overwhelming for you, understand that you can extend until October 15th, but you have to file that form. You have to file that extension form to request that additional time, and almost always it's going to be granted to you. So it's not a huge deal. It's just one less thing you have to worry about over the summer, though. So. And if you do earn, this is a question that we get a lot of. Hey, I only earned income, in the last 12 months, but it crossed over 2 different calendar years. So in the U.S., we have a calendar year system, meaning that if you earned income in 2 different tax years, you're going to file 2 different tax returns or tax filings for those 2 years. So if you earned income in both 2019 and 2020, you're going to file a 2019 tax return by April 15th of 2020. And then for the current year, for 2020, you're going to file by April 15th of 2021. So, which obviously you can't file that 2020 tax return, the one we're in right now, until next year. So you have to, even if you're no longer here in the country, you're supposed to be filing that tax return come next year. So, in summary, even if you've left, okay, and gone back to your home country, you still have to file a tax return in the U.S. here, and everyone always kind of wants to know, well, about how much am I going to owe? What's my tax? As a general rule, I mean, everyone's situation is a little bit different, but if you're saving between 10 to 15% of your income, then you're generally going to probably be just about right in terms of having that those taxes saved in your bank account, so that way it's not a huge surprise when you go and pay and file your taxes. So 10 to 15%. I would suggest that 15%, and that way you get you're even a little bit more safe come tax time. And in addition to paying federal income taxes, like I said before, you may have each state to file also, and so you're going to have to check with the individual state. I'm not going to go through each state that's out there, but oftentimes you are going to have to file. Oftentimes there is tax-free income up to a certain limit every year for everyone, and so you may have to check into filing, but you may not actually need to file, just depending on your own state tax rules. So I would encourage you to check out your local state's tax website when it comes time to doing that. So, and again, I think I mentioned this before, but au pairs are not considered to be students, and that stipend income, or the stipend that you receive, is going to be considered to be income for you. So, and let's see here. So, if you don't file a tax return, you are going to have possible penalties that you're going to owe. Worst case scenario, the IRS can work with the Department of State and have some visa issues and make it more difficult for you to travel in and out of the United States. And so this is something that you should take seriously. But and again, even if you've already left, I have a question that so you're here right now and you're going to be by tax season back in your home country, in this case Germany. So what do you need to do in that case? So even if you're back in your home country, you still are supposed to file U.S. taxes on the federal side, and then you would need to check into the state that you're working in. So, for example, if you're an au pair that is working in California, you would want to check with the California Franchise Tax Board in California, but every state calls it a little bit different, and check with their local rules to see if you have a filing requirement based upon how much income you made during 2020 or 2019, as it may be. So hopefully that answers that question for you. And to get a little bit,
if I could jump in 1 second, Tim.
Yeah.
With regard to that question, when she says next year I'm in Germany, how easy is it? What does the person, I guess they might all be thinking, do I have to bring some forms with me before I go home, or how do they access that in Germany? Most of our au pairs are from Germany or from Austria. Sure. How do they access those documents when they're home in Germany?
Yeah, good question. Thank you for the clarification. So, so I mean, all the IRS forms are online, and we'll kind of go over that with you here momentarily. The state forms will similarly be online, but the amount of income that you earn is going to be really up to each of the au pairs to track that. And so we suggest having a stipend tracking type form that every week you get paid, you're going to write that down, so that way you have it when it comes time to prepare your taxes. And so it's I mean here in the U.S. we have what's called a voluntary tax system, and so there's a lot of things that we just self-report, and so it's up to each of the au pairs to report that income to the Internal Revenue Service, the stipend income on that 1040 NR-EZ. So yeah, I mean, it's is it easy? Well, not, I mean, there's a relative term, but you're gonna, all the forms are online. So, all right. So, kind of moving on here. This is probably one of the little bit more complicated type things that, and this is where something like a sprint tax does help. But there, some of you may be required to file this form 8843, which is to let the U.S. government know that you're exempt from what's called the substantial presence test. And not to get into too much detail, but essentially this is a form to let the government know that, hey, you're in the United States for a lot of the year, but you're still not considered to be a resident. And you're not considered to be a resident because you're on an au pair type visa. So so this 8843, you probably should look into filing also, and essentially to boil it down into a complicated topic into a still complicated but hopefully not quite as bad summary. And I'm just going to read this because I think it's the easiest way to do it. So if you're in the U.S. for more than 31 days during 2019 and more than 183 days during 2019, 18, or I have a typo there, that's supposed to be 17, where you only count 1/3 of the days for 2018. Sorry about that, I have a typo again. And 1/6 of the days in 2017. I know that's super complicated and involves some math in there, but think of it as you get further away, they count the days heavier. But if you were in the United States for more than 6 months during 2019, you're going to file the 8843 just mathematically. If you're spreading across 2 years there, it's very, very possible if we're here 12 months straight, you're going to be filing that 8843 also. And you file that 8843 with your U.S. tax return, that form 1040 non-resident-EZ form. And so, I had indicated that we have, some web links here. The au pair's tax situation is a little bit, can be a little bit complicated, but the IRS does have, a specific, publication for y'all. And so this is very helpful. And so if you go to this IRS.gov website, here are the individual/international taxpayers/au pairs, that there is a resource available for you there, as well as you have the actual forms and the instructions I have here as well. And if you don't qualify for the easy filing, I have the non-resident forms as well as the 8843. And in terms of the 8843, I have a couple questions, and this is, I think, always the most confusing part of the presentation. And so I have a couple of specific questions on the 8843 before I go on. But first of all, yes, Sprint Tax does do the 8843. And so if you're doing your tax filing with Sprint Tax, I believe that at least the last time I looked at it, they supported that 8843 filing. And then let's see, the next question. Let's see. Okay, so if you're here for more than, I'm going to back up on the 8843 here. So if you're here in the United States for, think of it more than 183 days during 6 months. So 183 is half the year. More than 6 months during 2019, then you're gonna have to file the 8843. But if you are in the United States for more than 31 days during 2019 and more than 183 days during essentially the past combined few years, then you're also going to have to file. Okay, so I know that's still probably confusing, but think of it, if you're here consistently for 12 months, 10 months, during any time period, you're going to be filing the 8843. And as long as you were here for more than 31 days during 2018, because that means that you were here for most of 2018. And yeah, I'm sorry I can't make that a little bit more simple, but it's just mathematically, it's just not simple. But check out the IRS website on the 8843 instructions, because it does walk through that calculation. And so, for the folks that are not going to utilize Sprint Tax, I did put together just a quick little blurb here on how to kind of walk through your tax return. But just as a reminder, this is just for guideline purposes. It's not, we're not preparing your individual tax return on this webinar. Apex Pro is not going to be able to prepare it for you. This is something that you're responsible for yourself. So kind of step one here is that I think most folks already have a Social Security number, but you need to get your Social Security number. And if you haven't, I believe that your handbook kind of walks you through how to get that Social Security number, and you really need to get that as soon as possible here, because that's your identification number for tax filing. So that's very important. And then the second item is that you're going to need to calculate how much you received in wages, in income, in your stipend. And so we do recommend that you utilize some sort of form or whatnot. So each week that you receive income, then just go ahead and jot it down on that stipend record form, and so that way it's easy to track how much your income is. And then you're going to fill out that 1040 non-resident form, mail it out, and pay your taxes. So I don't have a copy of the filing, but you're going to enter your basic information on the form, and the kind of biggest question is usually always, well, what's my status? And you're going to click that box for single, non-resident, alien as your status, and then you're going to enter your earnings starting on line 3. So that's your stipend earnings, and you're going to follow that through a couple different reiterations. But you're so like, for example, line 7 is going to ask you to add up all lines 1 through 6, and since your wages or your stipend income is the only thing there, it's going to be the same on a few different lines. And so you just follow the mathematical instructions there. And then this is probably the most difficult part, but you're going to go into the instructions to be able of that form and pull the amount of tax that's associated with your income. And you're going to enter that on the appropriate lines of the 1040 non-resident return also. And there is a second page, even though it's not a terribly long form, but there's a second page that more has just questions that you're going to answer about your status here and whatnot. And then you're going to sign and date the tax filing and mail it along with any payment that is due to the address listed on our screen, which is also in the instructions for the form there. So you're going to pay. This is another question that we get often, is that it needs to be in U.S. currency, and so either by a check, money order. You can actually go online and make a payment also through the IRS's website. And even if you, like we covered before, even if you return back to your home country before the filings are due, or you actually do the filings, you still need to file and make payment. And we're now able to file tax returns. So if you're getting ready to possibly head back to your home country, it might be something you want to do quickly here, and one less thing to worry about when you get back home. So kind of a couple definitions to review. Our calendar year, tax year, is January 1st through December 31st here in the United States. That's a form that we utilize is that Form 1040 NR for non-resident-EZ. The IRS is an abbreviation for the Internal Revenue Service, and so you'll hear us talking about that occasionally, or your friends talking about the dreaded IRS. Your taxable income is essentially the amount of stipend payments that you received. And tax day here in the United States is April 15th. And our tax return is the actual form that you fill out. I have a lot of clients that continually think that their tax return means that they are getting money back, whereas that's not the actual tax return is the filing that you're going to do, and not everyone gets refunds, as everyone on this call will quickly find out, because you don't have any withholding on your stipend income, with the exception a few little exceptions here and there. And let's see here, your stipend income is considered to be essentially wages. And to kind of piggyback off of a question that I'm asking or getting asked here, is that you don't file these on a weekly basis, even though you may get paid weekly. So you aggregate or add up all of the stipend income that you have for the calendar year, and pay tax and report your earnings for the entire calendar year. So, for example, if you get paid $280 a week for 10 weeks, then you have $2,800 of income for that year. And just mathematically, you just extrapolate that out to whatever may be your personal situation. And if some of y'all may have different incomes every single week, and that's where it's important for you to keep track of how much income you have with some sort of whether that's a paper piece of paper you're writing it down, whether it's on your phone or tablet every week that you just write that down, or if you track it through your bank account. But you need to you need to keep track of that on your own, because no one else is going to necessarily do it for you. And these forms that we've been talking about are available, on the IRS's website. Let me get back here. Sorry. On the IRS's website, which I think that this presentation is going to be made available to where you can pull the appropriate the appropriate instructions and forms for your situation. Sorry, let me get back to where I was. And of course, I don't know how to do this without clicking through, so sorry about that. All right, so, and I keep talking about this, the stipend, record form, but it's just something very simple like this, that you're going to put down the date that the period that you're working, how many hours you worked, the date you received the payment, and how much it was, and then you can just add it up, so that way you know how much income you have for the year. So let's see. I have a question for. So yeah, I mean, in terms of on our tax filing period, so we have a tax period of calendar year. So if you're here during 2019, you're going to file a tax return or tax filing here by April 15th for last year. Okay, so their 2019 taxes are due in April of 2020. And then if you're here for, let's say, 9 months in 2020, you're going to file your 2020 taxes for those 9 months in April of next year. So April 2021, you're going to file for your 2020 taxes. So even though you may be here for just 12 months, that may straddle or cross over 2 different tax years to where you're going to have to file 2 different periods. And I think that is all that I have. I know that Tom and Carolyn are also on the call, which I'm familiar with both these professionals, and they do great work. I utilize their services for a lot of my athlete clients, and they do a great job of putting together household payroll, employee payroll, and other resources. So I appreciate them being on the line here and helping us out, because I especially know that there's been some changes, especially on the East Coast, with regards to treatment of au pairs, that I'm not sure if how detailed they want to get into, but they certainly can chime in or maybe offer any clarification on things that I may not have covered appropriately, or we can, Kelly and Diane, if there's other questions that you're seeing, more than happy to answer any of them. Sometimes us as tax folks, we live this stuff every day, and so we gloss over some things that may be important that we need to cover again. So open to however we want to proceed here with questions.
I think there's one more question that just came in, Tim.
Okay. So we have a question in terms of, can you offset your college costs, so your cost of going to school against your taxes that you owe? So that there are some credits that might be available. I don't recall the specifics in terms of if they're applicable to non-resident aliens or not, but it's not a deduction per se, but there might be a credit that would be available to you depending on your own situation. And you just want to follow up with the instructions to the non-resident form on it. And let's see, we have another question here. Let's see, I understand. Okay. Oh boy, okay, so we have a question regarding someone that's got married to a U.S. citizen. So this is probably going to it's going to be a little bit more complicated for this individual, because once you're married to a U.S. citizen, your status is going to be a little bit different. Boy, that's I want to say that you actually are going to be most likely filing as a married couple here in the United States at that point, since you probably are living here even beyond maybe your au pair time period. And so you would generally be filing jointly with them. The question is, can you use Sprintax? The Sprintax may be able to do that. I haven't tested that out, but your local tax preparer could be able to help with that also. And some of the other online services, if Sprintax is not able to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sprintax is able to handle joint filers in this situation also. And let's see, do we have a question?
Can I chime in on that one? Tim, I want to chime in on that one. Linda, your status changed. You have a different visa status, I'm assuming, when you get married. And then I think partially, I think you actually probably need an accountant to look at this, because I believe, because I'm in the country myself on the green card and with the marriage situation, once the visa status changed, you're not under J1 anymore. And then you probably will have to defer that period for 2019. You were not married on the program. And then it probably switches over to your new status. And that's what Tim meant with the married couple.
That's right.
I think yours is a difficult situation, correct, Tim? That you probably,
yeah, I mean, that situation Linda is in is you're going to want to have someone look at that.
Yeah, I agree.
This is probably not just a fill out the form type situation for you.
Yeah, I agree, because I did. Then once they get in the married situation, then it's not a J1 visa anymore. It's a different, so part of that year, Linda, when you got married, I think that's something really you have to look closely on. I don't think it's an online one form simple step.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really good online resources, but it's only as good as as the information you're giving them. And so sometimes what I find is that unless you know exactly what information they're seeking, sometimes they're making decisions not on the whole picture. So I would probably talk to someone locally, Linda, on that situation to make sure you're covered. So and then we have another question on with regards to state taxes. And if you're in one state during half the year and another state during another part of the year, and that's going to all depend on the individual state. So, for example, if you're living in California for part of the year, and then you're living in another state like Illinois for the other part of the year, it's very possible that you may not need to file in those states because the amount of income that you've earned isn't all that great. But you're going to want to check that filing. I mean, I'll tell you that like I mentioned before, I work with a lot of athletes, and so we have to file taxes in every state that they play in, and so that would be the analysis that would have to be done for you also, is to be able to look at the state and their filing requirements of what their the minimum that you have to that you earn before you have to file your tax returns. And you might find that, especially if you weren't here for the entire 12 months, like say from March through the end of the year, that you may be below that filing threshold for the individual state, which is very nice for everyone. So.
Tim, remember last year we had this big question of the states too, and I suggest everyone, we had a couple of ideas last year to ask the host families, the accountants they use. Some of them have accountants because they know the local state taxes. So no accountant can know all the detailed states. We know federals, and then, I'm sure, Tim, the California, but every state is different, and also it changes from year to year. I can give you the example in New York State, where I live. There is a tax exempt of $8,000 for the au pair's annual income.
Right.
That may change. So the state tax, I would see if the host family uses an accountant. Also online, I saw Mikey, you asked that question. New Jersey has a phone number where you can inquire. I'm going to email that to you. So you really have to, go to your local, tax websites or phone numbers and inquire individually, because again, it changes and the exempts are different. Some states you won't owe anything because they have a good exempt. Other states you owe a little bit. In New York, it was just like ballpark, I think $200 if you were in the United States, in New York for a whole year. So it's not as big as an amount, as the federal, but just so you know, and you can always reach out and help, and we can work with your hour directors locally too.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion to kind of work with your host family and see if they have any resources that they can shed some light on your local filing requirements also. But yeah, a lot of states, you're going to be right at that threshold to where you may need a file and you may not need to, just depending on how long you've been here in that particular state. So, all right. Well, any other questions or wait, what not doesn't.
Kelly, I see there's one with the education from Elke. Kelly, do you see that one? Can I set my?
Yes. Oh, he asked. He answered that question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, he basically, and I hope you understood that, Elke, that you need to ask specifically. But Tim, is it my understanding that it's not a credit that you get for? It's not a deduction that you can take for your off of your taxes for what you paid for education, correct?
Yeah. So if you let's say that I'll just use a high level example. So if you owe $1,000, or let's say you earn $8,000 and you paid $1,000 to go to school. Okay, that doesn't mean that your income is now $9,000. Now, but there are been some recent changes to where there is a deduction. Okay, for certain university and college costs, as well as there's a credit. So a credit will allow you to, if you owe $1,000 and you have $1,000 credit, that means you're net zero. And you don't owe any tax because I'm sorry, I don't know the rules in terms of whether, off the top of my head, whether non-resident aliens are eligible for the various education type credits that we have here in the United States. So
that's why I brought this up again, because I know you mentioned that Elke also with the $887.50, is that above the $500 the host family paid you or not? That's another question, because the host families are required to pay $500 towards your education. So if they paid that to you, that would not even be part of that anyways, even if it's tax deductible.
That's correct, right? Yeah, if it's above and beyond and she was paying it on her
Right.
own, you would want to check into the applicability of our education credits and deductions for education for non-resident aliens. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
That would be something that
last year some girls had inquired and there was no, because it was like with the medical tax system when we go to the US,
Yeah.
a certain amount, and some of them did try to inquire and there was a no if it was above the $500 the families pay, but that could change again. That's
Right, and some of that, just recently in the last 2 months, they actually reinstated some of the education credits or deductions. So, I just don't know the applicability to non-resident aliens. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, and then to add to that, Tim, the Sprint tax, just so everybody understands, when Tim showed you that slide of Sprint tax, and I know it was a very long discount code, but don't worry, we'll send everybody that over email. Sprint tax, if you use this service, instead of you trying to figure out all of these questions on your own, whether it's how much can you deduct for education, if anything, what is your state tax, if anything, or how much can you deduct for medical bills, or, if anything. Sprint tax is going to be a service that is going to be able to answer all of that for you. And it is, I don't want to quote how much it is, but I think, Diane, you have told me it is very reasonable, right, Diane?
Yes, it is reasonable, and everybody's situation may be different, but it's reasonable. I don't want to quote the amount, but I think you'll, feel like you're getting the service that you need for what you pay, and, just feel confident that they're really looking at your individual situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, I mean, I want to say it's under $100.
Yes,
okay?
Right.
It is under $100. Yeah.
And, if you are filing in 2 states, that's going to cost more than, in 1 state. Okay. And if you may not be filing in a state, it's going to be a little bit, lower than in 1 state, very possibly. The other thing that's nice about Sprint tax is that, you're not filling in the forms. Okay. You're answering questions. So they're going to ask questions, what's your address? What is your Social Security number? What is, what is your visa status? How much income did you have during the year? So you're just answering questions to them, and then it takes that information and knows what to do with it on the forms, as opposed to, hey, here's the form, and you're filling in boxes on the form. So it's an interview type intuitive learning system that they have. So it can be very helpful. We still have some questions on the education type stuff in terms of, can you get some of your money back? I can pretty much guarantee you that you're not going to be in a situation to where you're going to get money back that you paid to the university or to college. Okay, it would be solely that you're going to be reducing the amount of tax that you may otherwise have owed. So, for example, if you were to otherwise owe $1,000, there may be a credit available that you get, $100 less back. Instead of owing $1,000, you owe $900. Okay, but you're not going to be in a situation. I don't think there's anyone on this call that would be in a situation to where they're going to get a refund for money that they paid to go to school. That's just not going to be the case. There's another question in terms of, can you deduct essentially just your lifestyle, so your food, your travel expenses, clothing, and that type of stuff. Specifically, how come there are these companies out there that say you can do that? I can only speak for what I know and how I am interpreting the tax laws, and those types of deductions, I just personally don't think they're allowed. I wouldn't even know how to specifically put those onto the tax forms, quite honestly.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that. Alina, I saw that too. I'm not sure who those companies are, but personal life expenses, travel and such are not tax deduction. Just as in Germany, those are tax deduction if you're a business traveler and you're required to have mileage and such, and food expenses if you're on a business travel. But any of those, yeah, personal life, I don't know who makes these promises, but they're certainly not correct. There's no deduction for your personal life. And especially food, you guys have room and board with the host family, so this is, not a deduction possible.
Right. So, okay, well, hopefully that kind of covers, some things. I'm sure I confused, clarified something, be confused some other things, but I'm here to help as much as I can, and hopefully this help more than it hurts.
Also, I meant to mention, as a note, and especially the people that you return, I think the online services like the ones we have mentioned here, it's a good way to do it once you're in Germany, because I get this question all the time: how do I pay my taxes now? I'm sitting in Germany. So the online service, because you can pay with a card, makes the transaction a little easier when you're remote, in Europe again. And I've heard from a lot of alumni, that's what they did, and they, it was a smooth transaction. So, because when you're here and you send in the form by mail with the checks and all this is a little more, involved if you're sitting, in Europe and Germany again. So this was just a suggestion, for your return.
Good. It looks like one more question is about the Social Security number. Tim, is that the same as an ID number?
Yeah, well, your Social Security number is issued by the U.S. government, and let me see, it generally goes in 3 digits, dash 2 digits, and then dash a 4-digit number, and so that would be a 9-digit number, and so that's unique to every single individual that has one. So most likely that would be your ID number that you're probably referring to, as long as it's from the government and it's a 9-digit number. In most cases, again, you're going to have 3 digits and then a dash, 2 digits, and another dash, and then 3 digits.
Great, thank you. And I wanted to mention that this is Diane. We sent out an email earlier this week that has all the information that Tim has talked about tonight, along with the links that you can click on to get the form. So that's a download from the email, a tax information paper. And then also I included that you can click and download the Sprint tax questions that Tim mentioned, where they're asking you questions about your situation. And so you can read through that and kind of, if you want to use Sprint tax or are just thinking about it, it'll give you a good idea of how, the questions that they'll ask and how you'll walk through that process. So I can send that again with the recording, so you guys have a fresh copy, and we'll get that out within the next few days again.
And Tim, this is Tom Breedlove. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I certainly can.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say hello and thank you for the kind words earlier and all the helpful information. I don't have anything really to add except for the fact that you alluded to some of the changes in the law on the East Coast. So just to put everyone's mind at rest, there was a court ruling in Massachusetts, and I don't think most of the impact of that is really on the host families as opposed to the au pairs. Mm-hmm. But if you happen to live in Massachusetts and you have some questions about some of those changes, or your host family does, they can certainly feel free to call us at care.com homepay, and we can certainly help them understand the changes to the law. So thank you for a very helpful session.
Yeah, I would reiterate that if you are in Massachusetts, it is upon the host family to kind of know these rules, but there's a lot of misunderstanding with au pairs and household employees, and so I would suggest that you talk to your host family. I do have another question that so Sprintax is asking about an ITIN application, which is an individual taxpayer identification number. If you have a Social Security number, you do not need to have to fill out an ITIN application. So you should you should not need to utilize Sprintax for that particular service. That should only be if you don't already have a Social Security number or otherwise have a ITIN already. Let's see here.
And I think if I may ask for Massachusetts, I think it's also the case because it was late in the year the change, correct? So I think the original, there's still like the most part of 2019 is still under the regular stipend 1040 pay, and then it changed by, I think it was December 9th. So I think it's more applicable probably also than next year, right? When those participants file for the 2020 taxes, because that's when that changed. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, okay.
I think we have one more really good question that came in, Tim. Do you see this last one here?
Yeah, so I mean, about the deductions.
Well, it's about the libraries who are offering help.
Yeah, so what they're probably referring to there is that there are some services out there that kind of offer folks that don't make a whole lot of money, tax preparation services, and a lot of times they're at libraries or maybe a community center, a local United Way, and so that's probably where they're referring to, and but again, I mean, I don't know that you can deduct these type of expenses, but I also do not espouse to be the all-knowing of all things, so I always reserve the right to get smarter on anything and everything, but yeah, I'm just not aware of that that these would be qualified deductions for folks. So but like I said, everyone's situation is their own, and you're responsible for your own situation. So if there's other stuff out there, you should feel free to look into that.
Well, and what I would say is, if you're wondering about these things, like you've mentioned here, agency fee, your flight, your visa fee, all these things, it is best to seek advice, I think, from Sprintax or from your library if you want to try there first, than to get this form yourself and try to do that, because you don't really know the answers to that exactly. And someone else will be able to give you those answers better than you guessing yourself.
And Svenja, thank you for clarifying what was meant with that, with the libraries. I personally never heard such a thing. And things like agency fee and stuff, those are items that are paid in Germany before you enter into the program. So I doubt that such things for the care professional side are not relevant, because this is something, you did before you even came to the country. That's why I'm wondering. I just think it sounds really strange, right?
It sounds strange. I have heard of help at libraries and things like that. However,
bring it down to $200 seems, also in these WhatsApp group or different agencies with different stipends, lower stipend than ours. So I would be, I'm just saying, be cautious with these promises.
Right.
Go to Sprintax, ask your host families, maybe the accountant can help you. I would just be a little cautious with these things, with these promises and what is deductible or not, because, again, it's something I wonder about when they say agency fee and visa fees.
Yeah, here's what my gut tells me that is happening is that the person and it's probably with a group called VITA, VITA. It's Voluntary Income Tax Assistance, and it's an IRS type program. It is actually a program that when I was in college, that's how we as accounting students kind of got some experience in the real world, is that we volunteered to prepare taxes for folks that don't make a whole lot of money. Here's my gut is that the people preparing the tax returns don't understand that you're here as a non-resident, and so they probably are recognizing that income as what's called business type income, so it's what's called self-employment type income. And if you have a business, you're able to deduct the expenses associated with the business. Okay, and so they're probably taking your stipend income and saying, okay, that's your revenue for your business, and then all the expenses associated with it, they're taking a deduction for it. But I don't believe that is the correct treatment for au pairs. And again, I might be wrong, and that's but it's up to you to file your own taxes. So that's kind of the situation. But there's another question. Where do you get the 1040 NR EZ form? And so that's going to be on the IRS's website. And I think that Diane and Kelly are going to make the presentation available to where you'll be able to, get that website link and download that form.
Yeah.
Or if you're at the library, you can always get them there. They usually have the forms at the library too.
Yeah.
Or at the post office. Don't they have them at the post office
There you
too?
go, post office
Yeah.
too. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you check the email that you got a few days ago, this week, we've got a download there for Tim's information paper, and all the links are on it. So you can use that as your reference and find all the links there.
Yeah, and there's another, hey, sometimes, hearing that maybe you're going to pay even less than $200. And, the fact of the matter is that this is probably, again, folks that are not quite up to speed on au pair status here in the United States. So, they might be applying your, standard deduction against your income, of which, non-resident doesn't have a standard deduction. And there's no more exemptions anymore. So, as a tax guy, I'm the bearer of bad news all the time. But, part of my job is just to be able to, give the facts. So,
Tim, what could be the outcome if somebody did go and, and
sure.
Can you tell us what to look for dangers?
Yeah, so let's say that your income is $10,000 and your tax is $1,000, but you go to someone and they say, oh well, I think your tax is only $100, okay? And so a year down the line, the IRS says, hey, you're not a resident of the United States, you're a non-resident alien, so therefore we've recalculated this, and now you owe the $900 plus you owe $200 in interest and penalties for not reporting it properly. And so they'll send notices and letters requesting payment. And if the payment doesn't happen, not to scare anyone, but they can suspend visas, and they can restrict travel and some of those types of things also. And so and again, we're in a voluntary tax system here in the U.S., and so there's a lot of there is an expectation that everyone does the right thing, and so that's what kind of what it comes down to. So. And let's see, we have another question. Only pay taxes for the days you've been in the U.S. So yeah, you're going to pay tax on just the income that you earned in the United States. So when you're working here and you're getting paid in the United States, then you're going to you're going to owe tax on that income. If you're maybe if you're traveling with a family, possibly is what the question is maybe leading towards. So that's an interesting question, but I would say that, let's say that you were on a week vacation with your host family and traveling to outside the United States, you probably would be exempt from paying U.S. tax on that income, would be my first impression in that instance. But then technically you might be required to pay tax on the income in the foreign country that you just entered, but that's well beyond my knowledge base. So, but yeah, it should just be the income that you earn while you're working here in the United States. So. And obviously, if you have an unpaid vacation, you didn't get paid anything, so you don't pay any tax on that. So. All right, anything else? Diane, are you seeing anything more
One
kind of
more
pop up?
question, and then we'll wrap up. So it's, if I go to a company to do my taxes for me, I just don't get how I can do something wrong with that. Shouldn't they know what they're doing?
Well, they certainly should know, but they have to make, you have to make sure that at the end of the day, it's your taxes and you're responsible for those taxes. And so if you pay someone else to do it, oftentimes the IRS might be a little bit kinder in maybe not charging penalties on something because you relied upon someone that you think is a professional. But at the end of the day, it's your taxes, and so if they're filed improperly, the IRS is going to they're going to send you the proper amount of tax that you owe, and that's the end result of it. But yes, they should know these rules, but they're complicated. I mean, this it seems crazy that if you earn $2,000 in the United States that you're going to owe $200 of tax, but that's roughly about what it is because of the tax law changes that happened starting in 2018 now. So it's it's a tough spot.
Yeah, and the benefit of Sprint Tax is they specialize in in non-resident alien, that
That's
category. Right. So people like that are here on J1 visas or student visas. So you're getting really good advice with Sprint Tax.
That's
Cassie,
right.
yeah, I think it's a confusion. The Sprint Tax, of course, is an accounting firm. They know what they're doing. I think the confusion is when we heard that, there's some library options where you can get very low taxes. We just want you to make sure this where you go is a official, registered tax company, which is Sprint Tax or your host family's accountant. And, that was what we meant when we say just be cautious if somebody makes false, promises, do your due diligence, that this is a, solid, good standing accounting firm and a Sprint Tax for sure. I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we'll have this recording available to everybody over email. So if you need to see it again or you have further questions, you can refer to it. But we'll be sending that out along with the coupon code for Sprint Tax to give you just a little bit of a discount. So
Great.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Thanks, guys.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.